it's Yesenia. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the first part of May and the books that I read in the first part of May. So this is going to be my mid-May wrap-up. So let me start off with some statistics first. I read 4 physical books. I finished an ebook that I started in February, and then I also finished 2 audiobooks, so that is a total of 7 books if I'm not mistaken. Yes, that's a total of 7 books. So I'm going to be talking about the first 7 books that I read in the month of May, and let's just go ahead and get started. So the very first book that I actually read this month was a cult favorite, and I wanted to start off on a good note, and I'm very happy that I started off on a good note just because this is, it's been a favorite of mine for such a long time. I needed some good juju. And that is Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. So what I did this month was half the books were rereads, and then the other half of the books I didn't read. And then the ones that were rereads, I annotated them. So I annotated the heck out of Harry Potter. Like, this book is heavily annotated. And then I also wrote, I did a lot of, as you here on this page, as you can clearly see, I did a lot of writing in it as well. I was a little hesitant at first about writing in my physical books. However, this book, I think I already read it several times. It's not starting to fall apart per se, but it definitely looks worn. So I didn't mind writing in my Harry Potter book just for that. And of course I gave Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone 5 out of 5 stars. If I didn't annotate this book, I probably could have finished it in about 4 to 5 hours. Such an easy read, and I'm really glad that I reread this book because I have watched the movies over and over and over and over again, obviously, and it has been an extremely long time since the last time I read this book. I actually wrote down the date in here, the day I got this book, and it says December 25th, 2006. So I was around 16 years old the last time I read this book. So I forgot a lot of the things that happened in the book but didn't happen in the movie. One thing I will say about this book, and then I'll start talking about some of my other books, is that this book, I felt as though the action scenes were rushed. In the movie, I definitely felt like a lot of emphasis was put on the action scenes, and they really drew it out, and they really made it action-packed and really made it interesting. I felt as though J.K. Rowling, I don't want to say rushed the action scenes in here, but she kind of rushed them a little bit. Like the scene at the end of the movie, at the end of the book, where Voldemort and Harry are in that room and they're both trying to, and they're trying to get their Sorcerer's Stone. I felt like that didn't last that long in here, but it lasted a long time in the movie. So it's okay. I'm not saying it was anything bad. I mean, this is a middle grade book. Middle grade, not middle grade, probably lower end of young adult, so I can kind of understand why J.K. Rowling did that, but I just wanted to pointed that out and just wanted to state it for reading purposes. After reading Harry Potter, I'm actually going to talk about the ebook that I finished, which is Splinter by A.G. Howard. So this book was my ebook, and I started it in February. However, I felt as though I didn't have enough time in February to read it because I already had a hefty TBR in February. I think I read a total of 10 or 11 books, and at that time I was still going to work. So it was a lot. I did start it, but I didn't get a chance to finish it. And then I decided to finish this book at the beginning of May. So this book, I gave it 3, did I write it down? I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. So for those of you who don't know, Splinter is an Alice in Wonderland retelling, and this one takes place in the future. So this book follows Alice's, I think, great-great-great-granddaughter, and her great-great-great-granddaughter is cursed. All the women in Alice's family are cursed because of something Alice did in Wonderland. So Allison, all of the all the granddaughters of Alice have a name that begin with the letter A, and it gets very confusing because all of them were mentioned. So, but I'm pretty certain her name is Allison. Jeb, her friend, called her Al for short. So Al went back down the rabbit hole into Wonderland to try to break this curse. And this book was just really confusing at certain points. You know, it did capture some of the elements of the original Alice in Wonderland story. However, I felt as though it didn't do a great job of capturing the original elements of the original Alice in Wonderland story. And I say that because I did read another Alice in Wonderland retelling, and I thought that book did a much better job of doing so, and I'll talk about that when I talk about that book. But overall, I did give this book 3 out of 5 stars. I didn't absolutely like hate it, but I didn't absolutely love it. I felt kind of in between, and it was an okay read, and I have decided to not continue reading the trilogy because this is a trilogy and I'm just not interested. Let me talk about the audiobook I was also listening to at this time. So at this time, I was also listening to Catching Fire, which is the second book in the Hunger Games trilogy by Suzanne Collins. So I'm not going to talk too much about Catching Fire because I have a whole reading vlog dedicated to this audiobook. I will leave that video linked down below in the description box. So if you guys want to further hear about my thoughts of Catching Fire, you can go and listen to my thoughts there. I do want to say I did give this book 5 out of 5 stars. There were a lot of elements in this book that I forgot happened, and I really truly further discuss it in the reading vlog, so we're gonna leave it at that. The order that I chose to read my books in the month of May is reread, new read, reread, new read, reread, new read. So since I started off the month of May with a physical book of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, the next physical book that I chose was a new read, and that is The Toll by Neil Shusterman. You can probably tell from the thumbnail my thoughts on this book. First of all, this was not the right time to read this book. This whole trilogy does take place in the future, so it's a dystopian. There are a lot of the elements of what we are going through right now as a country in this book, and I just thought like there were just a whole bunch of similarities. And I'm not gonna talk too much about what happened in this particular book just because this is the final book in the trilogy. So the first book in the series is, the name of this trilogy is Arc of a Scythe, and the first book is called Scythe. So this dystopian, this trilogy, like I said, takes place in the future, and in this future, mankind has conquered death. So nobody dies naturally anymore. This creates an issue of overpopulation. So the only way people can die now are scythes. So scythes go around and they glean people. They don't call it killing, they glean people, and that's the only way that somebody can die. And so the first book follows 2 16-year-olds, 2 teenagers, Citra and Rowan, and their journey as a scythe apprentice as they are being trained by Scythe, I think was his name, Faraday, and then they go on this journey. Now, a lot of things have happened since the first book. I gave the first book 5 out of 5 stars. I absolutely love the world building in it. I gave Thunderhead 4.5 out of 5 stars. It wasn't, on the same level as Scythe. However, I really did enjoy reading it, and that cliffhanger, man, in Thunderhead, I was literally on my couch in the fetal position for like 10 minutes because I didn't see that cliffhanger coming. A lot of people on BookTube were saying, that book left on a big cliffhanger. I'm like, oh, I'm ready for it. I wasn't. And I was really excited to read The Toll, and I did see a lot of booktubers on BookTube stating that this book just did not live up to Scythe and Thunderhead, and they were a little disappointed in the ending, and a lot of people did give this book 3.5 out of 5 stars. So one thing I will say is a lot of people did say that this book, it could have been cut down. And they are absolutely right. This is a 625-page book. When I was reading it, I honestly had the same opinion. I'm just like, dude, we really need that description. Another thing that I didn't like about this book is that, so this book does take place sometime after the first book, Scythe. It takes place about like 3 to 5 years after Scythe does, and it does a lot of jumping around, and I couldn't remember like what year they were supposed to be in, and it followed so many different characters, and the points of views weren't labeled. And Thunderhead was the same way too, a little bit, but I was still able to follow what was going on in Thunderhead. And then this book, it was so hard to keep up with a character's point of view. And overall, I just felt like there were too many points of views in this book. This book was way too long. There was a lot of unnecessary descriptions in here. And I'm not even gonna mention the ending. So a lot of people did say that they gave this book 3.5 out of 5 stars. I'm sorry, I do not agree with that. I honestly think that is being very nice. So the rating, I'm gonna give this book 3 out of 5 stars. I didn't hate the book while I was reading it, not like Wicked Saints and the Gilded Wolves. So those books, I'm just like, nope, absolutely not. I actually changed those 2 books ratings to 2 out of 5 stars. So I didn't absolutely hate this book by the time I was done reading it. However, I didn't really enjoy reading it. It was average. It was a little bit less than average. Well, I mean, 3 out of 5 is a 60%. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. I was really disappointed in this book, and especially in the ending. Okay, so I'm gonna talk about the next audiobook that I finished, which is Mockingjay, which is the 3rd book in the Hunger Games trilogy by Suzanne Collins. I'm not gonna talk too much about Mockingjay as well because there's a whole reading vlog dedicated to Mockingjay and my thoughts about it. So if you would like to further hear my thoughts on Mockingjay, I will leave the link in the description bar in the bar down below. To that specific reading log. When did I finish it? I finished it last week Friday. Today is Tuesday, May 19th, which is the release date of the new Hunger Games book, and my Alexa has already told me that it has been shipped and it's on its way. So I'm very excited about that, but I'm not going to dive too much into Mockingjay and my thoughts. I will state that I did give it 5 out of 5 stars. It was a very emotional read for me. If you want to find out why, please go watch my reading vlog. The next book that I decided to read after The Toll, it was a reread, and I needed a reread after reading that book just because I just couldn't. And that book is Heartless by Marissa Meyer. So this was actually my very first OwlCrate book. I subscribed to OwlCrate, I think in November of 2016, so I have been a loyal customer of OwlCrate for 4 years. I absolutely love their products, and this was the very first book that I have ever received from them, and I'm so glad that I did. This is the other Alice in Wonderland retelling that I was telling you guys about when I was talking about Splintered. This book, however, is a prequel to Alice in Wonderland because this is a villain origin story. This book follows Miss Lady Catherine Pinkerton, and she eventually becomes the Red Queen. So this is her story and how she became the Red Queen in the Alice in Wonderland story. I will say that this book ties in so many elements of the original Alice in Wonderland story, and she did it so well, and it was so beautiful, and it flowed. And I almost hit myself in the head with this book, and I absolutely, okay, I'm gonna put it down. And I absolutely loved how she did it. I, of course, gave this book 5 out of 5 stars just because it was a reread, and I obviously reread it for a specific reason. And I'm so happy to have the beautiful white OwlCrate cover. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the original cover, but I just feel like this contrasts all of the elements on here more because this is like the vines and the crown, and the title of this book is so dark. I just think that the white background really contrasts it so well. Highly recommend this book. So much better than Splintered, and the ending. Oh my god. I remembered the ending. However, I forgot some elements of the ending, and whew, that was a wild ride. Since Heartless was a reread, I decided to read a new book, Winterwood by Shea Earnshaw. I think that's how you pronounce her name. So I actually just finished the book this morning. I was reading it in bed last night, and my Booklight, I have like a little clip-on Booklight, was dying, so I couldn't finish the last 10 pages. So I finished the last 10 pages before I started the workday. And I'm just gonna say this before I get into my feelings about this book. This book is absolutely gorgeous. I love the cover, and then look at the inside without the dust jacket. This is what the book looks like without the dust jacket. It is so gorgeous with the blue sprayed edges, and then also, so there are pages in this book that will occasionally not go in the past but give a description about a certain person. And look at this. Look at that page. It is positively gorgeous. And then there are dozens of pages spread out throughout the book like this. I just think the whole aesthetic of this book is just so pleasing, and it's so beautiful. So, Winterwood. What can I say about Winterwood? As beautiful and gorgeous as this book is, I am gonna give it a 3 out of 5-star rating. The reason why is it was a short read. I'm not saying that short reads, automatically get that rating, but Harry Potter was a short read as well. However, this book, I just did not enjoy the plot line that much. This book follows 2 characters, Nora and Oliver, and every other chapter is from their POV. I honestly just didn't get the point of the book. Okay, so be careful of the dark, dark wood. So essentially, this book follows 2 main characters. Nora is labeled as a witch because she comes from a family of witches, and she lives in the woods with her mom even during the winter, and she also lives near a boys' academy, like a boys' school, and this school is for boys. This is their last chance to clean up their act, and then yeah, so this school is their last chance to clean up their act. So Nora finds one of the boys in the woods, and then she ends up taking care of him throughout the whole story. And there is a mystery that does need to be solved in this book. I didn't kind of know that at first. I really wish I would have known that in the beginning. I can't remember at what point in the story, you find out this information, but for the longest time, I felt as though that this book had no purpose. Like, what is the main character's purpose? So I think that was the main reason why I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars, because you find out the purpose and the reason more towards the end. I just felt as though most of this book just followed 2 people around in the woods, and one of them is a witch. Normally, I would unhaul this book just because I didn't enjoy reading it that much. However, this book is so gorgeous, even with the dust jacket off. I think I'm gonna keep it. Okay, guys, there is my mid-May wrap-up. Thank you guys so much for watching my video. Sorry about the sweater. I currently have all of the windows in my apartment open just because there's a nice breeze outside, and I'm trying to take advantage of the natural cool air before I have to plug my AC in for the summer. So like I said, thank you guys so much for watching, and please be on the lookout for my next reading vlog, which is going to be reading the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I am so excited. And then also please be on the lookout for my end of May wrap up, because I still have 6 books left to read this month, and it is Tuesday, May 19th. Hopefully I can get it all done. All right, you guys, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Bye.